In the suburbs of America, there are stories so dark they force us to confront the very nature of evil. They often start in the most ordinary of settings, with people living ordinary lives, but end in a darkness that leaves a permanent stain on a community. This is one of those stories. It's about a young woman on the cusp of the most beautiful journey of her life, motherhood. It's a story of love, excitement, and baby showers. But it's also a story of control, violence, and a relationship that spiraled into an act of unimaginable savagery. This is the story of Lisa Dodd and the man who took her life and the life of her unborn child in an act that even seasoned police officers could only describe as abominable. At 22 years old and nearly 8 months pregnant, Lisa Dodd was just weeks away from her baby shower. Her home was filled with gifts and the promise of a new life. But that future was brutally extinguished. In June 2022, inside her own apartment in Alton, Illinois, Lisa was murdered and decapitated. The man responsible, her on-again, off-again boyfriend, was soon in custody, but his capture didn't bring easy answers. While the case is legally solved, the real mystery isn't who did it, but why. What could possibly drive someone to commit such a monstrous act? The answer is buried in a disturbing history of abuse, psychological torment, and a mind allegedly plagued by voices. A bright light. Dimmed. Who was Lisa Dodd, and why was her life cut short? Lisa Dodd, 22, was entering the final months of an exciting new chapter. She was 8 months pregnant and eagerly preparing for her baby's arrival. Everyone who met her remembered a gentle soul with a big heart, always ready to help anyone. She had a warm, reassuring smile that lit up any room. Friends say she dreamed of singing lullabies and teaching her daughter to ride a bicycle one day. Her life felt full of promise, until that summer evening changed everything. In mid-June 2022, as her family planned a late June baby shower, Lisa suddenly disappeared. Her mother could not reach her, and panic set in. The bright light of Lisa's life was abruptly cut short. Who could do this to someone so kind and full of life? For weeks, police promised they would find out. New beginnings and dreams. What were Lisa's plans for the future? Lisa had just moved into a small apartment in Alton, Illinois, hoping for a fresh start. Every corner of that home was being prepared for her daughter. She had painted the nursery pink and set out tiny outfits. A crib stood ready and a mobile with stars hung over it. A sign by the door read, "Welcome Baby, June 2022. Friends and family were sending invitations for a baby shower at the end of June. It was a simple home filled with big dreams. But soon those dreams would be shattered. In a few days, the apartment that should have echoed with laughter would instead hold a terrible secret. The night of horror. How was Lisa found? On June 9, 2022, Lisa's mother arrived at the apartment and immediately sensed something was terribly wrong. She found Lisa's lifeless body inside the bedroom. Police later confirmed the worst. Lisa had been decapitated, and her head was found in a dumpster outside the building. For neighbors, a quiet afternoon became a nightmare. Next-door resident April Wooten later described the horror. Dodd was 8 months pregnant. To lose a child that way. They lost two. Reporters and police arrived soon after, filling the street with flashing lights and cameras. The news even aired the chilling phrase, "the horrific murder of Dodd." Hearts broke as the community realized Lisa and her unborn baby were both gone. The gruesome discovery. What did investigators see? Investigators quickly focused on someone Lisa had known. She had been involved in an on-again, off-again relationship with 22-year-old Dundrea Holloway for about 2 years. Holloway was not the father of Lisa's baby, police noted, which meant the unborn child was innocent in their conflicts. Detectives arrested Holloway days later and charged him with first-degree murder and intentional homicide of an unborn child. Could someone so close to Lisa really do this? Even her neighbors found that hard to believe. They described Holloway as mostly quiet, not violent, a community in shock at the betrayal. Officers said they had never seen a case this horrific in Alton. Evidence and confessions. How was the truth uncovered? Under tough questioning, the gruesome details came out. Authorities confirmed Holloway had killed Lisa in her apartment on June 9, 2022, and then callously decapitated her. She had been 8 months pregnant, and police noted the baby was not Holloway's. In a court filing, forensics showed that everything matched up. Holloway's DNA and Lisa's blood were both at the scene. Holloway eventually pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and the homicide of the unborn child. Each new fact deepened the heartbreak for Lisa's loved ones, but at last, the case was solved. Every answer brought more sorrow as the community realized what had truly happened. A mother's agony. How did Lisa's family react? In court, Lisa's mother spoke from the heart to Holloway. Heidi Knowles said, "On that night, I received a life sentence," explaining the pain of losing her daughter and granddaughter. Her voice broke as she described never seeing Lisa's baby grow up. It was a gut-wrenching moment. Victims' advocates in the courtroom told reporters that Heidi's grief was obvious to everyone present. Outside the courthouse, community members left flowers and teddy bears in Lisa's honor. A GoFundMe page raised nearly $16,000 for the family to help with funeral costs. Even thousands of miles away, people watched the news and were moved by her courage. Every gesture of support underscored the tragedy of a life cut short. Justice delayed, justice denied. What happened in court? Nearly 3 years later, in January 2025, the killer finally faced judgment. Dundrea Holloway pleaded guilty, avoiding a lengthy trial. On January 17, 2025, Judge Neil Schroeder sentenced him to 60 years in prison, 30 years for Lisa's murder, and 30 years for her unborn daughter. That sentence means Holloway will likely spend the rest of his life behind bars. He must serve at least 52 years before possible release. People magazine noted the outcome. Holloway was convicted in the 2022 murder and decapitation of Lisa Dodd. District Attorney Tom Haynes said he hoped the verdict would give Lisa's family some assurance and a step toward healing. After years of uncertainty, the case was finally resolved. There was a sense of relief, but the loss of Lisa would never leave the family's hearts. Unanswered questions. Where do we go from here? Lisa's story is a tragic reminder of how quickly tragedy can strike. Her family continues to grieve and raise her daughter in her memory. They have also tried to find meaning in their loss. With community donations, they paid for Lisa's funeral and donated funds to a women's shelter and an animal shelter. By helping others, they honor Lisa's caring spirit. For local advocates, Lisa's case underscored a harsh reality. Maggie Menifee, head of a domestic violence shelter, noted that police in 2022 reported hundreds of high-risk cases of potential murder. Each one, she said, was a potential tragedy. Lisa's family now works with such organizations to help victims, hoping no one else suffers like they did. The case was once treated like an unsolved crime in headlines, but the 2025 updates finally brought answers. Media coverage often used phrases like Lisa Dodd Case 2025 to share news of the killer's sentencing. Even with justice done, Lisa's story leaves us with painful questions about violence and trust. Her bright light may have dimmed, but it continues to inspire those who knew her. Friends and strangers still talk about her kindness and the tragedy of her loss. We may never know why this happened, but we will always remember Lisa Dodd for the loving person she was. The world lost someone who truly deserved happiness. For all who loved her, Lisa's name will live on as a reminder. Cherish the bright lights in your life. Her life ended in tragedy, but her memory offers a chance to stand against such violence. In the end, her story reminds us to cherish every moment with loved ones and to never stop seeking the truth. Could a loving relationship hide a deadly secret? Lisa Dodd was a 22-year-old woman caught in a troubled on-and-off relationship. For 2 years, she held on to the hope that her boyfriend, Dundrea Holloway, could change. Each fight was followed by apologies and false promises, but the violence only grew worse. Lisa truly wanted to trust him, but Dundrea's temper ruled their connection. Every time he calmed down, she believed their next start would be different. Instead, every reconciliation ended in more bruises and pain. Every bruise on Lisa's face told a story she wished she could hide. At her Dairy Queen job, she often called in sick after terrible fights. When she did work, she tried to explain away the marks. One day, she told her boss she tripped and fell. Another time, she joked that her dog had jumped up on her. Each story changed, but the bruises stayed. Her manager noticed how often Lisa was hurt. Finally, one afternoon, the truth spilled out in the most cruel way. One violent afternoon, Lisa's boss saw everything. DeAndrea rushed into the Dairy Queen and started shouting. Then he struck Lisa hard. She fell, shocked and in pain. Her boss rushed to help. He called for an ambulance, but Lisa whispered she was fine. She begged him not to involve the police. Fear held her tongue as she protected the man who hurt her. The fights escalated. One night ended with Lisa in a hospital bed. Her nose and ribs were broken. Doctors suspected the fall story was a lie, but Lisa insisted she had tripped. She healed and went back to the same dangerous situation. For a while, they even lost their home. Lisa and DeAndrea moved into a tent by a quiet lake. Under the tent's thin roof, Lisa slept with a hand on her heart, terrified he would come for her. Above all, she carried a secret. Lisa was 8 months pregnant. This secret baby grew inside her, a future no one could know. Little did anyone imagine the horror that secret would bring into the open. Could jealousy over an unborn child drive someone to murder? Lisa's pregnancy was a secret and a source of fear. She had hoped the baby would give her life new meaning. But for DeAndrea, the idea of this child was unbearable. Every kick she felt inside reminded him that this baby was not his. DeAndrea's jealousy roared louder than ever. He saw this child as proof that his time with Lisa was ending. Desperate family whispers began to grow louder. Lisa's mother, Heidi, had no idea why the calls stopped coming. So every day she reached out. Each unanswered call made her worry more. She began checking on Lisa with relentless phone calls. Little did she know how quickly things would spiral out of control. Inside their apartment, tension grew to a breaking point. Lisa hid her baby bump under loose shirts and prayed at night for peace. Every morning she woke, prepared to face another fight. She walked on eggshells, terrified of what DeAndrea might do next. Each argument seemed minor at first, but now they always ended in terror. Lisa lived with constant dread, wondering, could love really mask such deadly danger? What happened on Lisa's final fateful night? On the night of June 9, 2022, tragedy visited silently. Across town, Heidi felt something was wrong. She tried calling Lisa again and again. There was no answer. In the early hours, she went to her daughter's apartment. The front door was ajar. Inside, the scene was horrifying beyond words. Lisa Dodd's life had been brutally stolen. She was found dead in her bedroom. Her body was gruesomely decapitated. Her severed head was discovered hours later in a dumpster behind the building. Lisa was 8 months pregnant. The little girl she carried did not survive. The local police later called it one of the worst crime scenes they had ever seen. The community gasped at the news. Just days earlier, they had been celebrating new life. Now they mourned. Families gathered in disbelief. One neighbor remembered, "We had a baby shower on the calendar. Now all we could do was plan funerals." They held each other, too shocked to speak. Everyone asked the same question. Who could do something so cruel? Who could commit such a cruel act? Investigators quickly realized this was no random attack. The evidence pointed toward someone Lisa knew very well. All signs pointed to her abusive ex-boyfriend, DeAndrea Holloway. He had been in Lisa's life for years. Each scar on her body, each secret hospital trip, they all fit into the picture now. Police reviewed surveillance footage and witness statements. Before sunrise, officers arrested DeAndrea at a neighbor's house. His face was calm, almost blank. They found proof: bloody clothing hidden in a trash bin and Lisa's blood on his shoes. That trash bin behind the building held the severed head. The case was as clear as it was horrifying. By morning, the town knew the truth. A despicable act committed by a man who had once claimed to love her. DeAndrea was charged with murder and the intentional homicide of the unborn child. The community was stunned. A young woman had vanished, and the person suspected was her boyfriend. Now questions haunted everyone. How could one person destroy 2 lives in a single night? Will there ever be justice for Lisa and her unborn child? For months, the Lisa Dodd case was an unsolved crime that haunted the community. Then came the Lisa Dodd case 2025 update. In December 2024, DeAndrea Holloway pleaded guilty. In January 2025, he was sentenced to 60 years behind bars. Prosecutors said this would keep him locked away for life. In the courtroom, Lisa's family found a measure of closure. Heidi spoke with heartbreaking strength. "On that night, I received a life sentence," she told her daughter's killer. She added that her nightmares would never truly end. Despite the conviction, nothing could bring Lisa back. Even now, many questions linger. Could the warning signs have been enough to save her? Those who loved Lisa struggle with what-ifs and never-weres. But the facts are finally clear. Deandria's guilt is certain, but the cost is eternal. Lisa's story is a stark warning. Sometimes the danger hides in someone trusted. For the community, the case is solved, but the pain will never vanish. They remember Lisa's laugh, her kindness, and the baby that would have been a blessing. Each year on the anniversary, her family asks again, why did this happen? For Lisa Dodd, justice was finally served, but at the highest possible price, 2 innocent lives taken too soon. The final 24 hours. Could Lisa's final text foretell a nightmare? Lisa Dodd had been in an on-again, off-again relationship with her ex-boyfriend, Deandria Holloway, for about 2 years. On June 9, 2022, Liz, 22 and nearly 8 months pregnant, agreed to meet Holloway at her apartment in Alton, Illinois. Nothing about that late Thursday night seemed unusual to her family at first. She was expecting him. In fact, just before midnight, Lisa sent her mother a cryptic message suggesting she would figure things out. It was a normal mother-daughter message, but it would become Lisa's final text. When Heidi Noel saw that last text and then heard nothing, a motherly dread set in. The silence was deafening. Hours later, her fear was realized. A frantic Heidi rushed to the Boulevard Street apartment. She did not find her daughter, only a nightmare. At the apartment, officers discovered Lisa's headless body. Her younger sister had vanished into thin air, brutally murdered and decapitated by someone she trusted. As the late-night fog rolled in, investigators found her remains scattered between the crime scene and a nearby dumpster. She was decapitated by a freaking savage monster, said the Alton police chief at the time. The brutality was unimaginable. Lisa had been found face down on the floor, still clutching her phone, suggesting her final thoughts were of her family. What investigators uncovered next would shock even the most seasoned detectives. Darkness descends. How did Lisa's last day turn to tragedy? Earlier that evening, surveillance footage would later show Lisa and Holloway arriving at the apartment building. The pair seemed to be talking, perhaps trying to resolve the conflicts of their fraught relationship. Lisa was carrying her 7 months pregnant belly with a quiet determination. They never knew it would be her last trip home. No one saw violence or struggle on the camera. Only an ordinary young couple returning at night. But once inside, the situation turned deadly. Investigators believe Lisa confronted Holloway one last time. But exactly what happened behind that closed apartment door remains unknown to the public. By midnight, the surveillance cameras at the complex caught Holloway alone. He carried a white laundry basket out of the building and dumped its contents into a nearby dumpster. Moments later, he walked away into the darkness as if nothing had happened. The scene was chilling. Clothes, blood, and finally a small sign of life erased. One neighbor later reported hearing no screams or shouts, only the heavy silence of the night. The only clue to Lisa's final state was her unread text, "I am trying to figure it out." For those who knew her, it is a haunting mystery whether Lisa meant she could fix their relationship or protect her unborn child. But something inside that room snapped. Soon the police would arrive to piece together the horror nightmare on Boulevard Street. How did Heidi discover the truth? The next morning, as dawn broke on June 10th, Heidi Noel's worst fear came true. Lacking any word from her daughter, she went to Lisa's apartment herself. Inside, she found the unimaginable, the lifeless body of her daughter, and the evidence of a savage crime. Lisa had been brutally decapitated. The Alton police later found her head discarded in a dumpster outside, the same one Holloway had emptied at midnight. Every detail of the crime scene sent a shockwave through the family. Witnesses said the apartment reeked of death. The police chief publicly declared she was decapitated. Decapitated by a freaking savage monster. The deputy coroner later confirmed Lisa died from multiple sharp force injuries to the neck. At 22 and expecting a baby girl, she had been planning a shower for late June. Now those hopes were gone. For her young mother Heidi and Lisa's family, that morning was a living nightmare. Heidi later told reporters she got sick when she learned what had happened. The image of her daughter, who had a big heart and would do anything for anyone, now lost forever. The search begins. How was her killer found? The community was stunned by the brutality. Police quickly focused on Holloway. He had a history of mental health struggles and a turbulent relationship with Liesa. By that Friday, Holloway was on the run, but not for long. He was soon arrested during an unrelated traffic stop for a minor theft, miles from Alton. By that time, he was alone and very quiet. He did not resist arrest. By law enforcement accounts, Holloway confessed that he had attacked Lisa and decapitated her. He showed where he dumped her head. The case moved rapidly after his capture. Authorities said he pleaded guilty to first-degree murder, intentional homicide of an unborn child, and concealing a death. For investigators, even with the confession, many questions lingered. Why had Holloway killed Lisa with such rage? During a court hearing, Heidi Noel confronted him. "I am disappointed that you did not keep your word when you told me you would not come back the next time you left," she said. He had once promised he would never hurt Lisa again. Now Lisa was gone and Heidi's life had changed forever. Although the killer admitted guilt, the horror of the act and why it happened remains chilling even to those who covered the case. Aftermath and justice. Was closure possible? In January 2025, after years of delays, the courts finally brought some resolution. Holloway, 25, was sentenced to 60 years in prison for the murder of Lisa Dodd and her unborn child. He will spend decades behind bars, likely the rest of his life. In the courtroom, Heidi Noel delivered a poignant victim impact statement. "On that night, I received a life sentence," she said tearfully. Without her bright, loving daughter and without knowing her future granddaughter, Heidi explained she must spend the rest of her life. She forgave Holloway for the act of murder, but not for destroying so many dreams. Police and prosecutors celebrated that justice was served. The guilty plea spared Lisa's family a painful trial. Madison County State's Attorney Tom Haynes said the conviction ends the legal uncertainty for Lisa's loved ones, bringing assurance and a step toward healing. Yet for many watching this harrowing Lisa Dodd Case 2025 update, there is still a sense of a mystery. Even as the killer is jailed, the memory of Lisa and her unborn child lives on as an unsolved crime in the hearts of those who loved her. The community donated to Lisa's family and even to a women's shelter in her name, a sign that her legacy may help others escape violence. And each year on June 9th, people wonder again, why did this happen? In the end, the facts are plain. A young woman 8 months pregnant was murdered by someone she loved, and her killer has been punished. But the echoes of this crime remain unsettling. Lisa Dodd's final days show how quickly life can turn tragic. Her story ends in pain and unanswered questions. And for those who tell it, from dark documentary filmmakers to true crime writers, the question still hangs in the air. What really happened during those final hours? And who will help untangle the mystery in this unsolved chapter of her life? Image: a pregnant woman forms a heart shape on her belly, symbolizing lost dreams. In June 2022, small-town Alton, Illinois was shattered by a crime that seemed impossible. 22-year-old Lisa Dodd, an expectant mother, was found dead in her own apartment. She was 8 months pregnant at the time. Lisa was a bright young woman loved by many. She was planning a baby shower with her family for late June, but those celebrations were about to be replaced by unimaginable horror. On the morning of June 10th, Lisa's mother, Heidi Noel, grew worried when she could not reach her daughter. At midday, Heidi drove to Lisa's apartment to check on her. When Heidi let herself in, the scene that greeted her was beyond any nightmare. The apartment was disturbingly quiet. Heidi found Lisa's lifeless body inside, a scene of brutality that no parent should ever witness. Police later reported that Lisa had been decapitated. The sheer horror overwhelmed Heidi, who staggered out of the apartment in shock. Neighbors heard her scream in panic. "He killed her!" as she rushed outside in tears. It was a moment frozen in terror. For everyone involved, it felt like the worst possible tragedy. A mother finding her own daughter murdered. What unfolded in that apartment was chilling. Police confirmed that Lisa's unborn baby had died too. The impact of the violence robbing the family of not one, but two lives. Mother's Day dreams had turned to a double funeral. A baby shower was now a funeral plan. As Alton Police Chief Marcos Pulido later put it, Lisa was savagely killed and decapitated. Even hardened officers were shaken. This was not a routine murder. It was something almost beyond belief. But what happened inside that apartment would soon become the core of a mystery that stunned investigators. What did police discover in the quiet apartment? Image, an alleyway with a dumpster, symbolic of where the gruesome evidence was found. When first responders arrived at Lisa's Bolivar Street apartment on June 10th, the scene was horrific. Officers found Lisa's body in the living area, brutally dismembered. Her mother had already identified the horror. An amputated limb or dismembered piece would have been a nightmare to see. Detectives combed the apartment for clues. The bedroom and kitchen were a mess. Signs of a struggle were evident, suggesting Lisa tried to defend herself. Blood had been cleaned up in some areas, but investigators saw trails and smears on the floor. Something else made the crime even more ghastly. Lisa's head was missing. Police soon discovered why. In a nearby dumpster behind the complex, officers found the victim's severed head. It was a sickening twist to the crime. Someone had dumped the head like trash. This fact was later confirmed in court. The killer left Dodd's head in a dumpster, according to court records. Even seasoned detectives found the details hard to process. The department's investigators knew they were dealing with someone capable of extreme cruelty. By the end of that first day, the apartment was sealed off as a crime scene. Detectives processed fingerprints and DNA, searching for any evidence left behind. They collected the murder weapon, a large kitchen knife, clothing, and other objects. Neighbors began talking. One recalled hearing faint noises the night before, but no one saw the killer leave. The only witness to some part of the crime was Lisa's own mother. Police took Heidi's statement later. Even her calm recounting was laced with agony, the reality that two of her loved ones were gone. Who could commit such a heinous crime? At first, no suspect was immediately obvious. Lisa was well-liked, and friends said she had been happy and relaxed with her pregnancy. She had been in an on-again, off-again relationship with a man named Dundrea S. Holloway. Holloway was 22 at the time, now 25, and lived nearby. Reports said Lisa and Holloway had known each other for about 2 years. They had broke up and gotten back together several times. No one knew for sure if their relationship was rocky or stable on that last day. What made the case even more complex was a cruel detail. Lisa's unborn child was not Holloway's baby. In court, it came out that Lisa had been with someone else while still seeing Holloway. Whether jealousy or betrayal played a role was a question investigators asked. Friends said Lisa had told Holloway months earlier that she was expecting a child with another partner. Holloway apparently insisted the baby was his, and even bragged about it to Lisa in recent days. To Lisa's family, such behavior seemed possessive and cruel. But none could imagine it ending in murder. Days passed before police honed in on Holloway. The Gillespie Police Department, about an hour away, made a key break. They spotted Holloway on June 9th riding a stolen bicycle. He was arrested for the theft during a routine stop. Only later did investigators realize that this 22-year-old man, now in custody for a bicycle, was the very person wanted in Lisa's case. Police brought Holloway back to Alton for questioning on June 10th. They showed him photos from the crime scene. By then, the evidence was overwhelming. Holloway had become the prime suspect. He had scratches on his arms, his clothes smelled of bleach, likely from trying to clean himself. At first, he denied involvement, but under intense questioning, the truth began to surface. In November 2022, Holloway eventually pleaded guilty to Lisa's murder. In January 2025, he was sentenced to 60 years in prison. The case that had seemed impossible to solve was finally closed, at least legally. But the motives and the sheer evil of the act left many unanswered questions in the minds of those who loved Lisa. What was Lisa's life like before the tragedy? Lisa Dodd was more than a statistic in a crime report. She was a daughter, niece, friend, and a mother-to-be full of dreams. Those who knew her described her as kind-hearted and generous. Her mother, Heidi, said Lisa had a big heart, and she would do anything for anyone. Lisa was always smiling in photos. Family shared pictures of her laughing with friends, helping community members, and eagerly preparing for her baby's arrival. Just weeks before her death, Lisa and her family were busy planning a baby shower. They had picked invitations, sorted gifts, and imagined the joy of meeting the child who should have been born in late July. Friends had painted nursery walls and knitted blankets. The whole town felt happy for her. In April 2022, she and Holloway had even joked about a photo op holding baby shoes. Ironically, Holloway himself had said it felt like being in jail to stay with Lisa all day, not knowing his words would later echo at the sentencing hearing. That makes the aftermath so much harder for the family. Lisa's friends now remembered a bright life cut tragically short. A neighbor, April Wooten, was forever haunted by that day. "That baby is an extension of the mother. They lost a child as well, they lost two," she said. It sums up the grief. Lisa was gone, and with her, their unborn daughter. For them, the loss was unimaginable. Lisa's room remained clean and hopeful, as if she might return at any moment. Every baby item now, a reminder of what was stolen by violence. How did police finally catch the killer? The investigation took a twist when Gillespie officers arrested Holloway for something as mundane as a bicycle theft. They did not know who he was at the time, but police in Alton had been looking for Lisa's ex-boyfriend, and when Holloway arrived for booking on the theft charge, they sprang into action. Officers realized the man before them matched the suspect description. Holloway even had a small confrontation with officers when detained, further raising red flags. At the Alton Police Department, detectives brought Lisa's mother and investigators together. Through her photo identification and Holloway's own admissions, the case fell into place. Police had evidence. Fibers on Holloway's clothing matched Lisa's apartment, and he had a cut on his hand consistent with the crime weapon. Confronted with this evidence, Holloway eventually confessed. The plot, though gruesome, was clear. After attacking Lisa, he left her body in the apartment and fled. Meanwhile, he had tried to hide the most damning proof by dumping her head in a dumpster. Little did anyone know that a simple bicycle theft would solve the mystery. It was an ironic twist of fate. A suspect for one crime inadvertently implicating himself in another. Investigators later noted that Holloway had traveled about 35 miles to steal the bike that day. If he had not, police in Alton might have been chasing many false leads. This lucky break gave them the closure they needed to charge Holloway with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of intentional homicide of an unborn child. What drove this cruelty? As the evidence mounted, people asked, why? It seems jealousy and anger played a role. Holloway had been upset that Lisa was pregnant by someone else. Prosecutors said he was jealous and delusional about the child's paternity. Additionally, Holloway struggled with mental health issues. During the case, his defense brought up his unstable state and medication problems. He was even found unfit for trial at one point in 2023. After treatment, he returned to face justice. However, none of that makes the crime easier to accept. There are still dark questions. Was this a premeditated plan or a crime of passion? Neighbors said he had been in the apartment all day on June 9th, as Lisa told her mom on the phone. According to court statements, Holloway told Lisa's mother that day, "I've been here all day. It's like being in jail." Moments later, Lisa was dead. In court, Lisa's mother told Holloway, "You destroyed so many hopes and dreams, including your own." For the community, this felt like pure evil. The Alton police chief did not mince words. Holloway was a freaking savage monster who had savagely taken 2 lives. It was hard to reconcile this image with that of an ex-boyfriend the family once knew. But as investigators pieced it together, the tragedy fell into a pattern of anger and violence. Still, some questions remain. How could someone be so cold? What drove him to such darkness? Is justice ever enough? In December 2024, Holloway pleaded guilty to the charges. On January 17, 2025, he was formally sentenced to 60 years in prison. The judge handed down 30 years for Lisa's murder, 20 years for the unborn child, and 10 for covering up the crime. His family sat silently as Lisa's mother gave a powerful impact statement. Heidi Noel spoke of receiving a life sentence that night, a line that captured her heartbreak. She told Holloway that Lisa's life had been snuffed out and the family's future stolen. At one point she said, "On that night I received a life sentence, to live the remainder of my life without my beautiful, loving daughter." She forgave him in part. "I do not hate you," she said, but added she was sad and disappointed by his actions. Though the legal case is over, Lisa's loved ones know nothing will ever replace what was lost. A GoFundMe for the family raised money to help her relatives cope. Flowers and baby shoes left at Lisa's memorial still appear months later, reminders of an innocent life ended too soon. The judge himself noted this case had left a community in pain. Image: the alley and dumpster where investigators found crucial evidence. The justice system gave Lisa's family some answers, but no sentence can erase the crime. Holloway's prison term ensures he cannot harm another person, but for Lisa and her baby, the tragedy is final. Every new year brings a reminder. In 2022, their lives changed forever. Key facts: Lisa Dodd, 22, was 8 months pregnant when she was killed. Her family had just planned a baby shower before the murder. Her mother, Heidi Noel, discovered Lisa's apartment in silence and horror on June 10, 2022. Investigators confirmed that Lisa's throat had been slashed and she had been decapitated. Her head was dumped in a nearby dumpster. The prime suspect was Dundrea S. Holloway, Lisa's on-again, off-again ex-boyfriend. He was arrested in a separate theft case and later charged with Lisa's murder. Holloway pleaded guilty and in January 2025 was sentenced to 60 years in prison. The Lisa Dodd case became a frightening chapter in true crime history. For those looking for the latest Lisa Dodd case 2025 update, this covers the known facts and outcome. Though the crime has been solved in court, the human wounds remain. This was more than an unsolved crime. It was a brutal violence that stole a mother and her child. The story serves as a grim reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of justice for victims everywhere. Each year that passes renews hope that Lisa and her baby at last rest in peace. Could it have happened in her own home? In Alton, Illinois, an ordinary evening turned into an unimaginable nightmare. 22-year-old Lisa Dodd was 8 months pregnant and eagerly preparing for the birth of her first child. Her mother, Heidi, lost contact with her and grew worried. When Heidi arrived at Lisa's apartment, she discovered a horrifying scene, her daughter's body decapitated and lying lifeless on the floor. Police later found Lisa's head discarded in a nearby dumpster. In a matter of hours, a joyful family life had been shattered by violence. What kind of monster could destroy a family like this? Could the killer have stayed so close to home? Investigators secured the crime scene and quickly identified a prime suspect: Lisa's on-again, off-again boyfriend, 22-year-old Dundrea S. Holloway. Given the brutality of the crime, authorities expected a desperate getaway. However, Holloway did something disturbing. He did not flee far at all. Instead of vanishing into the night, he ended up just 45 minutes away in a quiet nearby town. Police in Gillespie, Illinois, received an unrelated call about a stolen bicycle in the early hours after the murder. When officers arrived, they found Holloway calmly riding the bike near a bus stop. He refused to give his name and grew erratic under questioning. This strange nonchalance, sitting on a porch as if waiting for something, painted a chilling picture. Even his clothes were clean. There was no blood or sign that he had just killed anyone. It was as if the gravity of Lisa's murder had not registered with him at all. Nothing could prepare them for what they were about to learn. Why was the killer sitting calmly on a porch? Holloway's behavior only grew more bizarre. After a brief scuffle, he was arrested on suspicion of the bicycle theft and brought to the local jail under the name John Doe. At the station, he refused to cooperate. He even banged his head against the wall and cursed at deputies. Still, the police had no idea they were dealing with a much more sinister crime. By all appearances, he was just a stolen bike suspect, until routine booking procedures kicked in. Hours later, jail officials ran his fingerprints through the system and were stunned by the match. The quiet young man in custody was Dundrea Holloway, the very person wanted for questioning in the Alton homicide. In an instant, the case transformed. The man arrested for a minor theft was the very savage monster Chief Pulido had warned about. He was sitting there like nothing had happened. Then they realized the truth. How did they unmask the savage monster? The face of Dundrea S. Holloway on booking day. Police now knew that the seemingly innocent cyclist was the killer. Within days, Holloway was formally charged in Madison County with 2 counts of first-degree murder, plus related counts for the death of Lisa's unborn baby, the gruesome dismemberment of her body, and the criminal concealment of the homicide. Bond was set at $2 million. Holloway had been in an on-off relationship with Lisa for years, but that night that history ended in horror. Prosecutors noted that Lisa's baby, she was nearly full term, was also killed in the attack. In the eyes of the law, 2 lives were lost. By June 2022, the man who had terrorized Lisa Dodd was finally in custody and facing justice. Yet even as detectives pieced together the evidence, one haunting question remained. Was this the work of a cold, calculating killer or a broken mind gone brutally wrong? Every new detail only deepened the mystery. Is it the mind or the monster? Holloway's past revealed troubled signs. His public defender noted mental health struggles and a history of instability. Earlier in the case, Holloway had been found unfit to stand trial and was sent to a psychiatric facility for treatment. The defense argued his actions might have been driven by illness, while prosecutors pointed to the sheer savagery of the crime. Could a man with a fragile psyche commit something so calculated? Or was every move an attack meticulously planned? Investigators were not sure. They only knew that on June 13, 2022, Holloway entered guilty pleas to first-degree murder and the other charges. He was prepared to face the consequences, but even then, the community wondered what had driven him to such extremes. Why would someone do this to a life so full of hope? Will justice ever be enough? In the months that followed, the Lisa Dodd case drew wider attention as a chilling 2025 update was announced. Last winter, in January 2025, Dundrea Holloway was sentenced to 60 years in prison. The judge handed down 30 years for Lisa's murder and another 30 for the loss of her unborn child. For Lisa's family and the small Illinois community, the verdict brought a measure of relief. On that night, I received a life sentence, Lisa's mother Heidi told the court, to live the remainder of my life without my beautiful daughter. Yet for everyone else, the case remained a haunting riddle. The unsolved parts of the tragedy, the why, the how, lingered in people's minds even after the conviction. In the end, the cold facts of the case are known. An 8 months pregnant woman was murdered, a suspect was caught, and punishment was handed out. But perhaps the only answer that will never fully satisfy is the question, what truly made that ordinary evening turn into an unspeakable nightmare? No matter what, this story will echo long after the courtroom is empty. The conviction of Dundrea Holloway brought a legal end to the case, but for Heidi Noel, the sentence is lifelong. At the hearing, she powerfully stated her reality. On that night, I received a life sentence. To live the remainder of my life without my beautiful, loving, sassy daughter. A life without knowing the joy of watching Lisa raise my granddaughter. The labyrinth of the mind. With Holloway in custody, the legal process began, but it was immediately complicated by questions about his mental state. Was he fit to stand trial? Was he legally sane when he committed the crime? This would delay the case for years and add a frustrating layer of uncertainty for Lisa's grieving family. Twice, Holloway's defense team raised concerns about his psychological fitness. This wasn't just a legal tactic. There was a documented history of mental health issues. Holloway's own parents later revealed their son had been hearing voices for years, including one that tells him bad things. They said what he did was monstrous, but that he wasn't a monster, and that they had been trying to get him help for at least 3 years. In September 2022, a court found Holloway mentally unfit to stand trial, meaning he couldn't understand the charges against him. He was sent to a secure state institution for treatment. By February 2023, he was deemed to have regained fitness and was brought back to face the charges. Still, his defense planned to argue he was not guilty by reason of insanity. This legal back and forth was agonizing for Lisa's family. As state's attorney Tom Hain noted, "For the family and loved ones of Lisa, These types of issues have caused continued angst and uncertainty. Every delay was a painful reopening of the wound. The case presented a chilling question. Was this a targeted, rage-fueled murder rooted in domestic violence, or the act of a man so mentally ill he couldn't distinguish right from wrong? The answer remains lost in the labyrinth of Holloway's mind. A measure of justice. After years of painful delays, the path to justice for Liesa and her unborn child finally reached a conclusion, not with a trial, but with a plea deal. In January 2025, Diundrea Holloway pleaded guilty to first-degree murder, intentional homicide of an unborn child, and concealment of a homicidal death. In exchange, he was sentenced to 60 years in prison. Lisa's mother, Heidi Noel, initially wanted a trial. But as time wore on, the constant delays took their toll. The plea deal offered a guaranteed, lengthy prison sentence and spared the family the trauma of reliving every horrific detail in court. For Heidi, the 60-year sentence was long enough to provide a sense of finality. State's attorney Tom Hain affirmed this, stating it is unlikely Holloway will ever see the light of day. The sentencing was also shaped by a ruling from the Illinois Supreme Court. Initially, Holloway was charged with 2 counts of murder, one for Lisa and one for her unborn baby, which could have led to a life sentence. However, the state's high court ruled that, for the purpose of a life sentence, an unborn child could not legally be considered a second murder victim. While this was another source of pain for the family, the guilty plea on the charge of intentional homicide of an unborn child at least ensured that the loss of Lisa's baby girl was formally acknowledged. On January 17, 2025, the 60-year sentence was handed down. The legal chapter was finally closed. The story of Liesa Dodd is one of incomprehensible brutality, but it's also a vital lesson about the extreme danger of domestic violence. After the sentencing, Heidi used her voice not just to mourn, but to warn. This is a tragic outcome of a 2-year on-and-off again domestic violence relationship, she stated. Her plea to others is urgent and clear. Find the resolve to end that relationship. If someone threatens to end your life, believe them. Lisa's mother doesn't want her daughter remembered for how she died, but for the beautiful soul she was, a bright light full of dreams for herself and her baby girl. By telling her story, we honor that memory. The case of Liesa Dodd is solved, but the problem it represents is not. Her memory must serve as a call to action, to check on our loved ones, to believe victims, and to never underestimate the darkness that can hide behind a familiar face. What are your thoughts on this case? Share your perspectives respectfully in the comments below.